Binary Domain was one of the hidden gems of 2012. The game is set in Tokyo in the year 2080. Global warming has flooded the Earth and Tokyo had to expand upwards, creating a divide between the poor, who live close at sea level in Old Tokyo, and the wealthy, who live much higher up in New Tokyo. The visuals do a great job at separating the slums from the rest of the city, not only in the design of the city itself, but also in the people that occupy it. On the surface, the combat looks like a regular third-person shooter, but there is a small tweak in the sense that the enemies react to where they have been shot. Blow off a robot's gun arm, and they chase their old arm to pick up their gun again, shoot its head off, and they lose the ability to identify friend from foe and start attacking in all directions. Throw in some great boss battles and a great story that questions the morality of human SKI, and you've got one of the most underappreciated games of 2012. Yakuza Dead Souls is a zombie-themed spin-off of the highly acclaimed Yakuza series. Dead Souls places you back in Kamurocho, firstly in the shoes of Shun Akiyama, at the start of a zombie outbreak. As the game progresses, more and more of Kamurocho is quarantined and the story of the main characters start to intertwine. Despite Dead Souls' departure from the normal serious storyline that the other titles in this series offer, it does a great job of tying in the unbelievable with the slightly believable, while still keeping to the canon of the Yakuza series. While I did quite enjoy Dead Souls, it didn't really bring anything new to the table in the terms of zombie titles. They seem to stick to the staples of every other zombie shooter on the market, to the point where the special zombie types felt like they were ripped directly from Left 4 Dead. The game also suffers some pretty clunky controls, which take a bit of time to get used to, but aren't too difficult to master. All in all, Dead Souls is another great addition to the Yakuza series, which long-time fans and newcomers alike should find quite enjoyable. Mass Effect 3 is the last title in the Mass Effect trilogy and brings the story of Commander Shepard to a close. With some pretty big promises made before the game's release, like every decision counts in the final outcome, and the promise of 4 different endings, a lot of fans felt disappointed when it felt like these pre-release promises weren't lived up to. I was one of those fans, but despite the broken promises, Mass Effect 3 is still a great game, with a great story and a large array of side missions that can be picked up from overheard conversations or given to you directly from a range of characters. This game is packed full of quality content. Mass Effect 3 is also the first game in the series to feature multiplayer, and what a great idea that was. With a huge array of characters and a decent selection of classes, Mass Effect 3's multiplayer is basically a co-op horde mode. Each match is short enough that you don't lose interest and difficult enough to be challenging and engaging, with each difficulty tier pushing your skills that little bit more. Overall, it's a great game to finish a much-loved series. Medal of Honor Warfighter is the latest addition to the well-loved first-person shooter franchise. It's easy to get overshadowed in an oversaturated market, but I felt Warfighter carved out a little niche by properly establishing a connection between the soldiers you play as and their families back home. By actually focusing on the fact that the soldiers are real people too, it helps to add to the depth of the characters. You get a sense of what they're fighting for and why they believe in serving their country. Aside from an engaging story, Warfighter offers a really solid multiplayer experience. Warfighter introduces a buddy system, where you're paired with another player on your team who is highlighted in green. If you get kills near your buddy, you get bonus points and they get some points just for being near you. But the best feature is the only way to resupply and heal quickly is to go up to your buddy and interact with them. It's a neat way to try and encourage people to work together, and man does it help in a firefight to have those extra rounds handy. Spec Ops: The Line may seem like a typical third-person shooter, but it's far from it. Spec Ops follow a 3-man Delta team who have been dispatched to find out what happened to an American infantry battalion dubbed the Damned 33rd. Dubai has been plagued by the worst sandstorm in its history, and the Damned 33rd was sent in to help out the civilian population, and soon after all contact was lost. Not long after their arrival, the Delta team soon find out what happens when the population of a city becomes trapped. It's every man for himself. This game is not for the faint of heart. It's tattered with some pretty heavy issues and some pretty brutal and violent scenes that are definitely not for children. Despite its brutality, and without spoiling the story, Spec Ops does an outstanding job of delving into the mind of a soldier, and not only the decisions they have to make, but also the repercussions of those decisions. Must play for fans of great gunplay and a story with a great twists and moral ambiguity. Sleeping Dogs is the latest installment in the True Crime series. The game was originally pegged for release as True Crime Hong Kong by Activision Blizzard, but due to a high production budget and numerous delays, they cancelled development. Square Enix then picked up and renamed the game to Sleeping Dogs and were all better people for it. Sleeping Dogs could loosely be described as an open-world beat-em-up. Gunplay doesn't feature heavily, and combat is instead a series of brawls in which you can use a wide array of martial arts moves to dispatch your foes, or simply use one of the fairly brutal environmental kills to finish off your opponents. The story is pretty good. Follows Wei Shen, an undercover cop who's working his way up the Chinese triad organisation called Shun On Yi. The narrative is at its most interesting point when Wei is battling with his duty as an officer of the law and his honour as a member of the Shun On Yi. Sleeping Dogs has enough diversions to keep you interested, but the main attraction is the great combat system and compelling story. I must admit, when I first saw the promo videos for Hitman Absolution, I died a little inside. The addition of Instinct Mode, which when activated, shows Agent 47 the path an enemy's walking, and key objects in the level, felt like they were dumbing down a series that to me was supposed to be difficult. But I put my cynicism aside and tried to enjoy the game as much as I could, and I'm glad I did. Absolution is a great addition to the Hitman series, and you know what? If you don't want to use Instinct Mode, you don't have to. And if you don't, Absolution plays much like any other Hitman game. I must admit I found myself using it a little bit more than I'd like to, but in the end it didn't detract too much from the core gameplay. There's still ample missions with increasing difficulty and multiple paths to try out to see which one leads to the coveted Silent Assassin rank. One thing I was bummed about was the removal of the upgrade system that Blood Money had. Far Cry 3 is the best hunting game of 2012. Forget the brotastic story. Once you're set free on your fictitious tropical island, you're free to hunt anything that moves, from sniping a wolf because, why not, to trying to kill a shark with a bow and arrow. Far Cry 3 has it all. And all that hunting is not in vain. Every equipment upgrade you acquire is through hunting the poor, defenceless animals that roam the tropical paradise. You could spend all your time taking revenge on the pirates that killed your brother and captured your friends, but why would you bother? Being stuck on an island changes a man, and a changed man has no use for so-called friends who can't even escape armed pirates. But seriously, Far Cry 3 is a great open-world, first-person shooter with a good story and plenty of activities to do outside of the main story. I didn't care too much about saving rich white people, but one of the bad guys' perceived craziness kept the story interesting. When I first started playing Dishonored, it felt strangely familiar. If you've ever played the Thief series, then you'll feel quite at home with this action stealth masterpiece. Dishonored places you in the shoes of Corvo, once the bodyguard of the Empress, now shamed as her killer, as he sets down the path of redemption and vengeance. With massive level design, Dishonored leaves the choice of how you tackle a mission completely up to you. Want to charge the main gate? Go ahead. Want to possess the body of a rat on the street and try crawling through a pipe? That's a viable option too. Dishonored also rewards exploration in the form of relics and charms that help boost your powers, or by simply finding a stash of gold or equipment. The AI is also surprisingly clever. If you dispatch a guard who has a set route, then another guard notices they're not there anymore, they will abandon their task and set out to find the missing guard. With mechanics such as these, it makes it all the more satisfying when you finally sneak up on your target, dispose of them, and sneak out. If you're into hand-holding RPGs that give you a waypoint to show you which direction you should take your first step, Dragon's Dogma is not for you. For me, this was just put together so well. It was the right mix of frustrating and rewarding. The game teaches you the basics and sets you on your way. At no point does it tell you if you soak an enemy with water that your cold attacks do more damage, and it's game mechanics like this that make it such a great game. The game also features some pretty epic battles with larger creature types like Cyclops and Griffins, each with their own different tactics to kill them or disable certain abilities each of them have. There's also a pawn system. where you create your own follower and hire 2 more, and each of them learn not only how to fight every creature type, but they also learn the areas of the map and what to do on quests, then pass that info on to you or another player who decides to hire your pawn. I don't have enough time in this video to describe just how awesome this game is. If you love RPGs, then you should definitely give Dragon's Dogma a go.